Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag-and-drop Fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Hemp Foods European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Billy Madison is over. Sometimes I feel like an idiot.
Suntan lotion is good for me.
He was born into privilege.
Oh, really, fool? Really?
And stood to inherit a fortune. But for 27-year-old Billy Madison, there's just one problem.
How could I hand over my company to someone who couldn't even get through school?
That's nice.
Billy is not an idiot.
Give me one more chance. I'll prove I can take over. First grade through 12th grade, all over again. And then I get to take over Madison Hotels.
You're on.
I want you all to meet Billy.
You want some more of that? I didn't think so.
Don't you think it's a little pathetic that just because of who your father is, you get to come do school all over again?
Yes, I do.
I heard he's retarded or something. Good morning, class. So let's all open up our Reading is Fun books to page 69.
69.
Where's Billy?
He's in school, man.
What's it like getting back in school?
I don't know. I kind of feel like an idiot sometimes. Although I am an idiot, so it kind of works out.
Universal Pictures presents
Norman Invasion of England.
1066.
That is correct.
Adam Sandler,
I am the smartest man alive!
Spanish Armada.
1466. 67.
Billy Madison,
1469. 1514. 1981.
God, give me the answer!
Billy Madison, Andy. What the hell? Wait, this is part of our 90s comedy series. That's why we're doing this movie.
90s comedy, yes.
Mm-hmm. And, rough way to end this thing.
Did you see this in 1995?
No, I did not.
Okay, so for this pre-conversation, before we get into the movie, let's just talk about Adam Sandler. So this was a Saturday Night Live actor who moved into making films. I mean, he had been bit parts in things, Going Overboard, Shakes the Clown, Coneheads, one of the SNL movies, Airheads, Mixed Nuts, and then this was his breakout leading role film. And that kind of jumped him into leading comedy actor role, right? Kind of a position, because then he did Happy Gilmore, Bulletproof, which, is a little different for him. But, The Wedding Singer, The Waterboy, Big Daddy, Little Nicky, Punch Drunk Love, that was kind of the big switch. So it gave him this place to kind of do a lot of other things. But I mean, you look at where his career has gone, he's really stuck with a lot of kind of the comedy stuff, throwing in little dramatic things here and there as it crops up. Obviously, he's gotten into kind of the voice work with his Hotel Transylvania series and everything. And now with Netflix, he's in bed with them and they're just cranking all sorts of things out, like The Ridiculous Six and Hubie Halloween and Murder Mystery, stuff like that. So obviously, he has found a niche and kind of a level of comedy for him. Do you remember like his time on SNL before he really started kind of breaking out with stuff like this in Happy Gilmore?
Yeah, because I remember the redheaded sweatshirt bit. Like I remember his singing, right? Because that was an era like I was watching SNL at the time, and it was one of those things that he was always a piece you could just sort of plug in. He was like the Pete Davidson of SNL at that time, and he could do some funny things. I think it's rough to extend those bits to feature length, and this was one of those movies where you feel like there are a number of things that come right out of SNL, some of the character stuff that come right out of SNL that I don't think play. I think his brand of gibberish and the singing bit is fine for a frat party, but doesn't work in the film. The fact that they did the Sloppy Joe bit and didn't sing Sloppy Joe, Sloppy Joe, like I kind of can't believe they didn't take it that far. And the lunch lady land. Like I can't, they put the bits in and not the songs. And in some cases they had them singing and not doing the bits. And it was a weird homage to stuff that was already kind of dumb.
So I'm glad that you have that frame of reference. I don't think I was watching much SNL at this point in time. I think my SNL watching, or maybe I really can't remember. I feel like I watched a little more like right after he had left, more with kind of the early Will Ferrell window. But I also feel like, Adam Sandler, I really just can't remember, because I feel like if he was on, I may have just skipped those ones. Like I don't remember him. Or I watched pre-Adam Sandler. I don't remember. I just don't feel like I saw a lot of SNL. So I don't think I recognized anything in here as having been pulled from SNL, which is interesting. So it's funny that you say that, because I wouldn't have, like, that Sloppy Joe thing came up and I'm just like, where did this come from? Like, that was a strange non sequitur. All of a sudden it's like, you get another one and here's a Sloppy Joe for you. And I'm like, what is this bit? So, okay. So that makes that make a little more sense to me. Still, it wasn't great, but
do you? I mean, let's just say before we talk about the show, you're going to do the rating and everything like this. So if there was another movie, and I'm intentionally putting it here in our conversation so that we don't execute this plan. If there was another Adam Sandler movie that you would prefer to talk about for an hour, which one is it?
I struggle with Adam Sandler often in his humor because I do find he kind of does this weird voice and like he acts like he is a child and then also very ragey. And so I don't like a lot of that of him. When I do like him, it's in things like The Wedding Singer or 50 First Dates. Like, I really enjoy those two rom-coms that he does with Drew Barrymore. And I think it's because he feels a little less angry and a little more genuine in the way that he's kind of coming across. When he has kind of this ragey, angry side, I just am so much less interested in him, period. And it's interesting because I feel like you look at stuff like Punch Drunk Love, and I think Paul Thomas Anderson.
I know you don't like that one.
I don't care for that one, but I think that's because Paul Thomas Anderson really enjoys that ragey side of Adam Sandler and drew on it to really kind of create that character who is a very angry, ragey guy. He's very quiet in everything, and then he just bursts into his angry phase. So I didn't care for that one. It would be an interesting one to talk about for sure. Most recently, I think Uncut Gems would be a very interesting one to talk about because I think that's there's an interesting kind of like a side to Adam Sandler that I don't think had been explored much before. It's a difficult film to watch, but I do find it to be quite strong. And so I think that's kind of where I end up landing with him. And I have seen some other films of his. I mean, I did see Bulletproof, which, is fine. I did see The Waterboy, and, he's a very sweet guy. And it was actually kind of a funny movie. And so that one would be kind of funny to talk about. Then I saw Little Nicky in the theater, and I really regretted it. And that was, I don't think I've seen any of his comedies, if it wasn't like a rom-com since then. That was, oof.
Well, and the family stuff, like I don't have a strong memory of Click, but I will tell you that Bedtime Stories became a staple around here as a family-friendly comedy. There is a little bit of his him playing a child voice idiot, but not very much. And overall, I think it holds up. Like my kids put it on a couple of weeks ago, and it actually, it's kind of sweet, and it has some fun and funny moments, childish and fun and funny. Great for younger kids. Like it's goofy and has some gross stuff, and it's good for laughs. I'm with you on Uncut Gems. I think that would have been the one that I would have picked. The other ones that I haven't seen though, like Sandy Wexler and Goldman v. Silverman, that's another Safdie brothers one. And I haven't seen Hustle yet. But it's one of those that I think it just dropped on Netflix like a week or two ago from Jeremiah Zager. I think it gets to the promise of Adam Sandler, which is like, stop doing the bits, like just act, because I think there are movies that show this guy is a performer and has range, and he got stuck, and he's so stuck, as evidenced by some of his responses to criticism around his Netflix deal, that he is like, he brings some serious financial weight to that platform. Like his movies are there and they are watched, apparently.
Well, and they're not crazy budgets either. It's not like, Martin Scorsese doing this 4-hour epic period piece. This is like, he does these modest budget comedies. And so because of that, they're able to kind of, work better for Netflix than some of these bigger ones that they're complaining about. The one that I've heard great things about, and particular Adam Sandler's performance, is the Meyerowitz stories that he did with Ben Stiller and Dustin Hoffman. I've heard just fantastic things about that Noah Baumbach's film that I believe also was a straight to Netflix film.
That's true.
And but it kind of fell off the radar. I don't know if it was because complaints about Dustin Hoffman at the time or what, but it kind of fell off the radar. It is one that I'm very curious to check out at some point because I do keep hearing how strong that one is. So
yeah.
I don't hate Adam Sandler. I just and honestly, I mean, I know that this film, Happy Gilmore, all of these comedies that he cranks out, I know he has a huge audience because there are people who really enjoy his comedy, and more power to them. They can have them. I am not the audience for this film or most of his comedies. So I think that's where I kind of end up landing with Sandler.
Well, as David Ehrlich said, that specifically about the Meyerowitz stories, it is a noticeable improvement from Adam Sandler's previous 3 Netflix originals in much the same way that a glass of Manischewitz is a noticeable improvement from drinking one of those ominous puddles that forms in the groove of a New York City subway seat. That, I think, sums up my feeling about this part. This is a subway seat movie.
Did you see the Meyerowitz stories?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm with you. I had forgotten it even existed until I looked it up on Letterboxd.
Yeah. Well, we should look at that one. So, all right. Well, this movie was rated PG-13 when it came out, and that was for language and crude humor. Want to watch this movie and help us out? Well, you can. If you see an Apple or an Amazon link to the movie in the show notes, just click on it. It will take you right to their site, and you can rent or buy the movie. When you do this, you get the movie, we get a little tiny piece in return, the filmmakers, everyone kind of wins. It's a great way to kind of boost the general overall cinematic community. I think that's
and you can head over to our cinematic community. We'll go with that. You can jump over to our merch store at truestory.fm/DNR merch. Pick up some logo stuff. You can even just get the Next Reel logo shirt. It's a classic, the classic logo. It's our antique beer bottle logo of the Next Reel. And so you could sport that on a mug or a shirt or a pillow. You could put your head on our logo. That would be awesome. Anything you buy over at our merch store there, we get a little tiny sniff. So tiny.
We would love to feature audio reviews from you, our dear listeners. We have our entire lineup over in our Letterboxd page for our next season. Since this is the end of this season, you can go look at our watch list for next season. Start watching the movies. Send us your audio review to reviews@truestory.fm. Once you watch it, we'll hold on to the file, and once we get the film reviewed, we will throw your clip into the episode. Again, just send it to reviews@truestory.fm.
So that Letterboxd thing, once you get over there, you're going to look at the watch list, and it's going to have ads on the page, and you're like, why are my eyeballs subsidizing this watch list? I think this should be just clean and clear and aesthetically pure. And I have an answer for that too. You just go over to their patron or pro page. Just go scroll down to the footer and say, I want to support Letterboxd, and enter the code NEXTREEL at checkout. So that will give you 20% off that upgrade to patron or pro. You'll have no ads. You'll be supporting a great team making this social network for movie lovers. And once again, the Next Reel gets a little sniff. Helps support the cost, helps keep the show online, helps pay for hosting and delivery of this podcast. We're cruising toward 1,100 episodes of this show. I mean, we're within striking distance, maybe 2 or 3 as we end this season of 1,100 episodes. That is a lot of files and, bits. There's so many bits that are being stored and delivered on demand. So for those of you who treat this as like a library show where, hey, I just watched a movie and the Next Reel talked about it in 2016 and go back to look at those bits, cost us the same as new bits. And so it really helps us out. Anything you do that helps us out gives us a sniff, whether it's merch or Patreon or even becoming a member of ours yourself.
Yeah, that's right. You can become a member of our show. You get early episodes. You get member bonus episodes every month. We've been doing an episode returning to a previous series. We've been doing flick chart re-rankings. We've been doing an episode at the end of each series, kind of reviewing the series as a whole, called our retake. So all sorts of extra episodes, plus the early access that you get as a member and special Discord channels that you get. So you can learn more about becoming a member at truestory.fm/TNR membership. The most it'll cost you is $5 per month or $55 per year.
I fear that my opinion of this movie, and I should say, Brian in the chat room, if you're a member, you could jump into the TNR live stream chat room and chat along as we record this live. Brian already called the shot and said at its high, his most liberal assessment of my Letterboxd review was going to be 3 stars. I fear Brian shall be disappointed. But that said, I worry that my opinion of this movie will be taken out of context and extrapolated to my opinion of juvenile humor. And I assure you that is not the case. I am all in on stupid humor. I believe heartily in stupid humor. And a guilty pleasure for me, for example, is Role Models. I find that movie so stupid funny. I laugh at that all the way through. And it feels like a very similar class to what, Sandler is going for in this movie. So I love stupid humor. I do not love this stupid humor.
It's interesting. I don't think Role Models I screams out to me as stupid humor. That feels a little more just straight up comedy. I don't know. I guess that's an interesting thing to discuss because I think there's a level of kind of that juvenile or sophomoric humor. And that film seems, maybe some of it is, but I feel like it's just they're having more fun.
How about Step Brothers? Is that one that you would
That's juvenile
as...
humor. Yep.
See,
I would say that's juvenile humor.
Hysterical.
Yeah, that one's kind of a bore. But you look at something like Dumb and Dumber. That one to me, which actually is probably a better comparison because it came out, was it the same year actually, Dumb and Dumber? Dumb and Dumber came out in 94. So it was right before this. That to me worked exceptionally well. I don't know. I really struggle. Like, why is it that I find that film works so well? And maybe it's because I genuinely find those two guys so charming in their goofiness. And I end up finding Billy Madison, again, it's just like this anger rage thing that Adam Sandler seems to always be kind of have bubbling under the surface. And so I really struggle with that, but I don't have that issue with either of the two leads in Dumb and Dumber. Jeff Daniels and Jim Carrey both are kind of operating on the same juvenile level, but they're so, I don't know, there's this kind-hearted goofiness that they have through the whole thing. And so I end up connecting with those guys so much more than I ever do with Billy.
Movies like 21 and 22 Jump Street. Superbad.
I don't. Okay. So what are we saying is it just juvenile?
That's what I'm asking. Like I am trying to build a pattern that adapts to your opinion of where this movie fits.
Well, 21
I think
and
there's
22...
way too much heart in 21, 22 Jump Street, right? I also
don't think they're as juvenile, and maybe it's just the character Billy himself that is just, and that's why I can't think of anything other than Dumb and Dumber because they're all acting like such idiots.
Okay, I've got one.
Okay,
Zach Galifianakis in the Hangover movie.
Genuinely a funny character, though.
I agree. But I think there are people who would look at Sandler in this one and say, okay, he's a funny character.
Oh, well, and again, this is I think the line that we're perpetually going to be battling with because I think it boils down to what are your tastes in comedy, and I think there are lines of comedy that I just like when Adam Sandler he comes into his dad's meeting room. Well, first off, the movie starts and he and his buddies are drinking by the pool. And he starts hallucinating and seeing this giant penguin, and he's racing around the place, and he's going to boobies. I got to get my booby magazines and whatever. It was so absurdly kind of just crass, and I don't know. It threw me. And then when he goes into his dad's meeting, I don't know, he just starts talking gibberish. And it just like I didn't have a sense of this, like this character as anything other than just an annoyance.
Yeah.
And I get it. Some people really will like that. But for me, it's just like, who is this guy? Like, he's just this annoying guy just doing nonsense. And there was no sense of character other than here to be annoying.
I think the curse of this movie is, one, that it's fireworks, nonsense fireworks. But the challenge with his performance of it is that he swings so broadly from being an annoyance to being a rather interesting guy, right? Like, when he is having conversations with Veronica, he is able to be a mature adult, like a likable adult. She doesn't really see him all that often, like splashing around the pool looking at drunk girls magazines, right? Like, I guess she sees some of that when she goes into his weird safari tent in his backyard, but you know, we have a whole separate conversation to talk about her. The real issue that I have is that it is in the universe of the film, he is not a believable character, right? Yeah. It's a ridiculous premise. Like, you have to go through all 12 grades, you know, first grade through 12th grade in 2 weeks each in order to get this company. We have lots of movies where the impossible deal is absurd and you win a company at the end. Like, that's something we're accustomed to. It's not like they're introducing some new magical thing that we have to get used to. We're set up already because of film history. They've just put this unbelievable character in it that has way too much range. Like, there's no excuse for the way he swings in the narrative of the film. Like, the film just saying, apologizing for the film and saying, oh, the film knows he's an annoyance is not enough. I don't believe his motivation for why he is so stupid around his dad. I don't believe it. I just don't understand why that exists, because it's so out of the blue, which makes that context shock takes me out of it every single time, right? Like, I love to laugh at dumb things, and this is not a laughable dumb thing. I think it could be a smarter dumb thing.
Yeah, and also I think it is one of those films that I'm not 100% sure on this, but I feel like you likely needed to see it at the time, at the right age, or with the right mentality to have it be something that works for you. Like, I told my son, who's 11, hey, sit down and watch this with me, because I thought maybe if I could see it through his eyes as he was enjoying it, maybe that would help me, because that certainly has helped with some other films. And after 10 minutes, he's just like, okay, can I go now? And he couldn't get into it. And I mean, and to that end, he has seen stuff like Hubie Halloween, which he watched on Netflix. So I feel like maybe there's this thing that clicks with Adam Sandler fans who watched it at the time, who really just get into it. Your point is well made, and I think that's one of the frustrations with this film is, like, this character is just like a nonsense character, and I just don't. And I mean, listening to Tamra Davis talk about it and how fun they had making it, and they had this goal of always wanting to try to make every scene the funniest it could be. And I get it. When you're making a comedy, that's the goal. And I feel like in the case of a film like this, it ends up turning it into kind of a sketch film where it's like every scene is its own little sketch. Let's do what we can that's funny here. Okay, let's do what we can that's funny here. And when you look at the big picture, I just don't feel like it ends up creating this cohesive picture of this character. And like, Billy and his quest to take over the company is like, why is he even interested in taking over this company? Other than it seems like the only interest he has is to make sure that Bradley Whitford's character of Eric doesn't get it. Like, that seems to be his only motivation, because it certainly doesn't seem interest. And instead, why didn't he just tell his dad, Eric's terrible, why don't you give it to Carl? He's so much more appropriate for it, or something, as opposed to going through this whole nonsense. And I get it. It's the plot of the film. But it just, like, that seems to be his only factor in doing this. And it just, I don't know. And it makes me like Darren McGavin's character less. Like, it ends up creating this nonsense story that I can't ride with. And it makes for a frustrating experience with this film.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really the trick, that he is Like, he is an unjustified malignancy in this movie, Sandler is. And I am with you. I don't like the infantile rage machine that he swings into every now and again. I think it's a distraction, and I don't think it's funny. I think that character has aged poorly, and I think just writ large, it is an unjustified narrative consequence that at no point, just because you've been told, just because you've been entitled all along, believing that you are going to get this company is not enough to build the kind of personality battle between Bradley Whitford and Adam Sandler to make it interesting. It's just not. And I'll go. This really is the same movie as Bedtime Stories, right? Because he's a groundskeeper for a small hotel that was purchased by a much larger hotel, and the chief operating officer or whatever of the much larger hotel franchise is about to get the ownership of the company, and it's another hotel thing. Like, it's essentially Billy Madison, and Sandler's character is still a groundskeeper, but he has ideas. He has aspirations for what the hotel could be. And because of that, he has pent up frustration. Like, he has character consequences. He will not be fully realized until he's able to be noticed and get these off his chest. And that creates a real conflict between him and this other character vying for leadership of this company. And in the context of Stupid Comedies, they actually have a idea duel off that ends up being really funny, and I think works so much better because there are personal, intrinsic stakes inside the character. He wants something, and Billy Madison never wants anything in any sort of satisfying way, apart from just getting to the end. Like, I don't think the movie makes a strong enough case. We do have that turn in the third act where he says, I've been cheated. And so he does realize what he has wanted all along when the news drops that the principal is saying that he was paid off and that the entire experiment was fraudulent. And then things sort of turn on the narrative angle, right? But that means 2/3 of the movie is just kind of nonsense parading through.
Well, yeah, and I think there is an interesting element of the film also that looks at kind of social status. And we talked about this a little bit with Clueless, because here, or in that film, we're following these Beverly Hills students, in particular ones who have ridiculous amounts of money and just kind of throw it around left and right. And it's not a point of the film, but it certainly is a plot element that allows for them to do the things that they're doing for the film, right? And in this particular case, it's kind of the same thing. That element of it comes into play because it's like you have this ridiculously rich hotelier, I guess, in Darren McGavin, and this is his, he's the owner of this big chain. They live in this ridiculous mansion. His son is a schlub who just hangs around in the backyard drinking with his buddies and destroying the property with his golf cart, making so much more work for the people taking care of the place. And so we get this sense of wealth and the haves, people who just have a lot of stuff and are able to just do whatever they want, and are able to put on this entire 24-week thing where they're going to be sending Billy back to school from grade to grade over a number of months. And they do call it out a few times in the film where you have, somebody saying how ridiculous it is that they're able to pay for him to do that, things like that. Obviously, that whole big academic decathlon that they have at the end, the principal calls out that, thanks to this big donation from this guy, we're able to do this thing. And so they call it out a few times. But again, I feel like they're doing it in a way where it works in context. The comedy needs that. They need him to be this ridiculously rich guy to inherit this hotel. But it also makes, because of him as this person, it makes me like him so much less, because he's just this ridiculously rich kid who gets to act like a brat, do whatever he wants, gets to get this company by getting his dad to do this big thing by taking over all these schools and having this big experiment happen. And unlike Clueless, this character in Billy Madison, he's just such a dislikable character that it just makes me so much more irritated with these people than Clueless ever did.
So let's take that distaste that you're really sucking on right now, and let's turn our attention to the actual classroom experience. So the premise, he has to go to each grade for 2 weeks and pass successfully.
And we really only see first through fourth.
Right. And high school.
And then it's a montage. And in a day or two of high school, yeah.
It's a montage, and he goes to high school, and he has a rough time. What is your sense of how they handled the school treatment? The principal, conceit of this movie. How do you think he did in school?
Again, they boil it down to just having fun sketches as opposed to giving us any sense of him out of gaining any sense of education from it. The first grade class is pretty much designed to be a joke around paste and dodgeball. I don't know why the teacher is painted as a weirdo. She's, she sends the kids to play outside so that she can do her weird dances and stuff. She's like this new age something. I'm not sure. At some point, she's smearing paste on her own face. What was that all about? I have no idea. I don't know what was going on with what they were doing with that teacher. Really, it boiled down to the conversation about the kids' book, the teacher being nonsense, and then the dodgeball, which, that's, I think, one of the selling points for the film is seeing this big guy, Adam Sandler, rage throwing dodgeballs at these little tiny kids, which is actually a funny story that we can talk about in a sec.
Well, I think we can talk about it now. I don't know why we'd wait. What pray tell did you like about dodgeball?
It was funny to learn because Adam Sandler, when he was talking to Tamra Davis about this scene, he said, it's funny to hurt the kids. And she's like, what are you talking about? That's a horrible thing. And he's like, no, it's funny. People will laugh. They'll think it's really funny. And she was horrified. But so he told the props person, the head of props, to deflate the dodgeballs a little bit so they weren't so hard, because he was going to really chuck them at these kids. And he told Tamra, he's just like, just make sure all the parents approve that, they know that we're going to be really throwing these dodgeballs at the kids. And she was horrified at this whole thing. She thought it was a terrible idea. But, movie parents, they're like, if my kid gets to be on the screen, then sure. And the kids are like, me. And they're all excited about this. Yeah. But she said the reason that they cut every time a kid gets hit by the dodgeball is because there were so many tears. She's like, there were so many tears that's why we keep cutting, because he was throwing those balls so hard at those kids. But she said even afterward, those kids were raising their hands again because they wanted to get hit again. It was just like they were having fun in that way where, the slap game where you play that and you slap each other's hands. It's like, I keep playing, but my hands are red and I feel like going to be bleeding soon. So it's one of those things. So it was a very funny story hearing kind of that. And it is a funny scene. Like, that was one of those things that works. And that's one of those things where kind of that ragey Adam Sandler kind of ends up playing well in context of what they're trying to do with the movie.
Yeah, I get it. And I get that, kids do stupid things, and dodgeball is a ridiculous game. And I say that because as a child, I was bad at it. Of course, that's my baggage. I hate dodgeball. I hate watching dodgeball. I think it's ridiculous. And, but there are kids get some funny shots. And that's the point, right? That's the conceit. Sometimes kids eat paste. And so when you put an idiot 27-year-old in a first grade classroom, of course, the joke is make him do the thing that a first grader would do. Make him do the thing. What is the conflict that comes out of making a full-size adult person doing a small child thing funny? I get that. That's not lost on me at all. Part of me, as I'm watching this movie, I'm thinking, man, I wonder if this would be funnier for me if Andy Samberg was in it. Like, I am one of those people that believes that Andy Samberg is just a generational leveling up of Adam Sandler. He performs smarter and funnier, and his bits are better, and I just like him more. So I'm already biased against another guy whose name is A.S., and I worry that I just don't like Sandler's comedic performances. because I do like his other stuff. I just want to say that. So this one, it just doesn't play. The other piece that I have a problem with here, when talking about the school, is that I feel like they spent way too much time in the little kid grades because they were going for the cheap jokes, and the more substantive humor would have come later when you get into the, the more emotional stuff like that we do get little pieces of when he pulls up in the Trans Am and he's dressed with an REO Speedwagon shirt on. Like, I started to feel more represented by the high school, like the later middle school and the high school stuff, and found that funnier and harder to watch because of the discomfort that I had in it. I thought the young kid stuff, where we spent most of our time, was going for the cheap humor, and I didn't care for it.
I think the reason that they did that is because that is the level that Sandler's working on. He is working on that elementary school level. And I don't think, and I think if they had tried to find a way to keep his, juvenile comedy in the high school, I don't think that it would have, we get what happens. Like, the high school kids think that he's just like so uncool. Like, the girls don't even talk to me, because he is literally, he's like a second grader coming in to be in a high school class. He just doesn't make any sense there. And so I think that's why they operated it that way. And, they needed to end high school quickly. And I think that's largely, they kept it in elementary school because that's where Sandler works, in those base level jokes. Once he gets up to high school, I don't think they could carry it more than that contrast, just to play how much dumber he is than all the high school kids. And that's why we had to come up with the whole thing to have the principal do this whole calling out this blackmail.
Yeah, it's like
thing
it's like pulling the ripcord on the story. Like, let's
exactly.
move on.
Yeah, we can't sustain this for 12 grades. So we got to bail on it, come up with another thing, and then just do this academic decathlon with Eric. And that's really what the whole thing boils down to. It's like he's not even going through high school by that point. It just, like, I felt like the whole thing just kind of collapses on itself because they couldn't sustain. Like, something that another movie that I was thinking about in context of this was Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield, because again, here's this guy who needs to, and I can't remember the conceit, but he has to go back to college and get his degree. And, he's this, big, corporate guy, but he has to go and get his degree. But he literally has to do it. Like, and that's what made that movie work, is because you have that fantastic montage at the end when Rodney Dangerfield is actually studying and trying to get all the stuff sorted out so that he could actually graduate at the end of the film. And to that end, like, you set it up and you pay it off. And this movie, you set up this whole conceit with this thing, and then you're like, you know what? It's not working. Let's just come up with a different thing at the end and it'll be fine. Yeah. And it's like they give up on the plot.
Totally give up on the plot, which is to this last point, the academic decathlon, which is ridiculous, because they actually, like, he wins by losing, because he happens to be ahead by a point because he didn't light a pie on fire in home ec, which is the sort of the biggest flamboyant, dare I say, joke. And then they both lose the final point, so he wins the decathlon. This is not a pro-education movie at all. Like, he skates by and effectively gets a gamed version of the GED as a result of this thing. It ends up being like he's learned really nothing, and he's taking his academic experience and he's going to pivot that into becoming the worst teacher. That's the big lesson. He's going to be a teacher.
Well, if the one, you talk about its stance on education here in this particular film, Yahoo for school.
Yeah, right.
I like to think there was that era when I think it was the American Library Association was like, doing those heroes read or whatever. It's like, all these different famous people on posters about, like, I love to read, you should too, or whatever it is. Anthony Hopkins and Robin Williams and whoever, all these different people. And it just like the highest we get in this film is a poster of like Billy Madison, Yahoo for school. That's about where we get to as far as like the pro-education stance that the film holds. It's very weak sauce as far as what they're actually trying to say and do with this film. But again, that's not their motivation. Their whole thing is like, I want to win this company back from Eric because he's bad. And he does. And he's like, oh, I didn't really want it anyway. Why don't you give it to Carl? And it's like, that's essentially the what we have going on here.
I wonder, like, I think, wrap up my opinion without, overly bashing Sandler's performance here, is that I wonder if a character more aligned with someone like, Steve Martin playing Ruprecht in Dirty Rotten Scoundrels might have been able to pull this off more. I think the swings of this character going from the juvenile first, second, and third grader going into fourth grade and realizing he has a crush on Veronica and needs to be an adult in order to make that play is worse for the movie, because we don't actually get a sense of him growing at all through the course of the film. It is it's too much. Does that ring any bells?
Well, yeah, and let's talk about third grade now. This is Veronica Vaughn, the Miss Vaughn, the third grade teacher that he meets early on in the film. Totally falls for her. He, love at first sight sort of looks, or lust at first sight from Billy as he sees Miss Vaughn. And then when he finds out she's going to be his third grade teacher, he's thrilled. She's not thrilled at all and calls him out for being juvenile, making fun of another kid who's struggling to read in class, calls him out, pulls him out of the class by grabbing his ear, and has it out with him. Like, you are just because your dad can pay to have you here doesn't mean that I'm going to like it. She even tells her class, we're going to have to tolerate him. I apologize. We have to deal with this for 2 weeks because his daddy can do it. She seems to hate him. And the transition, like, what is it that suddenly makes her like him? Like, even before, there is a moment where there's that character beat where he makes it seem like it's okay to wet your pants because his little second or third grade buddy wet his pants, and so Adam Sandler pretends he did and is like, everybody's doing it, it's super cool. She's like, that was very sweet, and that seems to be kind of like what's meant to be kind of the character transition for her, saying, he's not so bad. But she's already been transitioning to, kind of like him. And it's just like, what a weak character. It just seems to be so typical. I don't know if it's just typical of the 90s and the 80s of kind of male film characters, how the woman just has to fall for them. It doesn't matter how obnoxious they are. It's just easy for them to fall for him. And it just is like, this is, I don't know. I really disliked this relationship between these two characters because it just there was nothing to like about him.
Well, unless we forget, he does grope her on the bus because an 11-year-old double dared him to do so.
Double dares him, yes. Should have been a triple dog dare.
You said that. I didn't say that. That doesn't make it okay.
I'm just saying,
there is no level of dog dare that makes it okay.
No, you're right. I'm just. It's a better movie when you have a triple dog dare.
That's true. More triple dog dares all around, but not on buses, and certainly not groping your teacher. And the way she responds to it is that she responds as if an 11-year-old had done it, that she's so understanding. But that's where it's those kinds of things where the movie falls apart and takes you out of the movie. Maybe it would have played when the movie came out as that sort of dumb humor. Certainly a lot of people got it as such. It doesn't age well. That kind of stuff certainly makes the movie poorer for it today.
That's a big issue with it. It's like the jabs at women characters just as jokes for male audiences.
Yeah.
To have these bits where it's just like they're just way too easy on them. Like, it's like the reaction is like, "Oh, you're so silly." Like, that's essentially how she responds to him.
Well, and the maid, his assistant, Juanita, is cleaning the house and she is super lusty over Billy. Well, the way that's played for comedy is also insensitive over the years because, her jokes are like, can I make you feel better? You're a fine piece of ass. Let me take my shirt off for you. Like those are played for jokes from her perspective, but from the perspective we've been following the whole time, it's a grotesquerie, right? He is struggling with that. And so that's also a sad kind of humor, right? That's also a sad joke.
And that's honestly a weird way to take it, because at the beginning of the film, you look at some of the adult magazines that Billy is looking at, and it seems like he would be way into his maid. So to then all of a sudden, it's like, now they're having it both ways. We're going to make fun of him for being into these magazines. We're going to also make fun of that grotesquerie romance idea, and it ends up coming across like all over not working well at all.
Yeah. Do we talk about Whitford? Like what Whitford is doing in here?
What is Whitford doing in here? I don't know what Bradley Whitford. I
love Bradley Whitford.
Bradley Whitford. What is he doing in this movie? He was doing like character bits in some TV episodes here and there in the mid 90s. Other than like in film, it was smaller roles, stuff like The Client or Cobb. I think he had a bigger role in My Fellow Americans. I think he was like chief of staff or something for one of them. I can't remember exactly, but he's just one of those actors who's great. And I see him in something like this. I'm like, well, again, I think actors, if it's something they click with, then great. I'm glad that it worked for him, and certainly I'm sure his fans are thrilled that he's in this and so many other things too, because he's a good actor.
He is a good actor. He did. I haven't actually watched it, but I was really excited to watch it because he was in it. It's a pandemic movie. It came out in 2020 called Songbird. Have you heard of this one?
No, I don't think so.
I was really excited to watch it. Pandemic rages across the country, and then I looked on IMDb and it's a 4.7, so I lowered it in my watch list. But he's in it and he looks really great, and so I feel like I'm at the point where I can watch pandemic movies and enjoy them, and so that bummed me out. But I love him on Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I love him. Every time I see him, I find him super charismatic, and I see this movie and I'm like, that's a bummer.
Yeah.
But he is also, I think, Ben has a great point in the chat room that he matches the tone of the film and acts like a grown man child, and just in a different way. And the fact that he ends up losing the academic decathlon is just demonstrative of where they're trying to put these two individuals, right? And
to a question about business ethics, which is the big joke there, yeah.
Exactly. And it's a great joke. I mean, that actually ends up playing as a great joke. There is, when you talk about just sort of the absurdist writing, the exchange between him and Carl about the Trisket. I had a Trisket on the way over, and they have the little Trisket commentary. I find hysterically funny. Like, I love those little bits of dialogue that are inserted in here that stick with me. And so, it's great. Some of his stuff is funny. It's just a weird seeing his face in here.
Well, and I'm not saying like nothing in this movie made me laugh. Like, there are bits in here. I mean, Chris Farley almost always makes me laugh in whatever he does. And as the raging angry bus driver, that he worked really well. And actually one of my favorite exchanges was when he was talking to Billy about how he nailed the teacher. And he's like, no, you didn't do that. He's like, oh, no, I didn't do that. But my buddy did. Oh, man, it was great. He didn't really do that. No.
Well, here's the problem,
those
Andy,
were the great
with
bits,
exactly that. The guy who owns infantile rage monster is Chris Farley.
Yes.
You don't put Chris Farley in that role next to Sandler and expect it not to be funnier than your principal character. Like, he's the Van by the River guy. Come on. Like, he owns that.
He's very funny. Norm Macdonald is the other big face from SNL that we get here. And this was his theatrical debut. Like, this is where he first popped up in movies. And of course, he went on to do plenty of other things with, many of the SNL people and outside of that. Plenty of stuff with Adam Sandler through the years. Sadly, we just lost him, a year and a half ago now, or maybe not even a year. No, not even a year. Yeah. It was just last fall. That was kind of sad. But, Norm Macdonald is one of those funny guys. He's not given really anything fun to do here, just kind of like the drunk friend by the pool. And I didn't really care. I
don't think he's very funny.
Other than just having him in it. But yeah, it just was a little bit flat.
Yeah, that's one of those things where just the appearance itself ages nostalgically. Since we just lost him, I didn't care for him in the movie. I don't think his bits are very funny. I think he was... he was. I liked him a lot on SNL. I thought he was a great Bob Dole. I loved Weekend Update with him. Like, I think he did some really funny stuff on that show. But as a theatrical performer, I'd prefer watching his stand up.
Yeah,
I think it's been a long time. So,
what did you think of Bridget Wilson as Miss Vaughn?
Bridget Wilson's interesting.
Do you remember her from the 90s? Like Last Action Hero, Mortal Kombat. She pops up in stuff like Nixon. I Know What You Did Last Summer. Mm-hmm. She was busy through the 90s. I mean, now she's married to Pete Sampras, and she's pretty much been out of the acting scene since 2008-ish.
Yeah.
But, I mean, in the 90s, she was one of those faces that we were seeing quite a bit.
Do you remember her? I mean, when you watched her, did you say, oh, I know her?
She's one of those faces that I recognize, but I wouldn't have been able to tell you what it was from.
Yep, that's exactly where I was too. I definitely recognized her. And when I looked at her filmography, I was really surprised to see that her last film was Phantom Punch in 2008 and then nothing, because... Like, I guess I would have expected to see more from her. Like, she seems to have the acting chops to get cast over and over again with some big names. She's attractive. She can pull off funny. Yeah, I was surprising to see that she kind of decided to retire.
Yeah, I don't know. I know that she and Sampras have a couple kids. I'm not sure if she just kind of retired and has been taking care of the kids. I'm not really sure what she's done since.
Have you seen Phantom Punch, her last film?
No. It's a boxing movie, though, right?
I haven't seen that. Yeah, it's a boxing movie. I haven't seen that. I did see... I saw Shop Girl, which was based on Steve Martin's film, based on his book. And I quite liked that, but I wasn't watching it for her. I was watching it for Claire Danes and Jason Schwartzman, and she was in it, and I had no memory of her being in the movie.
Yeah.
And she was a principal character in it, too, and I couldn't place her role.
Phantom Punch also starred Stacey Dash from Clueless.
Oh, there you go.
Interesting little connection there.
So,
so other than the cast, I don't know if I have much else. So Tamra Davis, she's, if you look at her filmography, she largely made a dent in the music video industry early on. She was making just a ton of videos in the 80s, 90s, Depeche Mode, The Smiths, Faith No More, The Bangles, Sonic Youth, New Kids on the Block. Like, she was just doing so much with music video and everything. And that's really where she broke in, is doing that sort of work. And I watched, so I wanted to see her first film, which was Gun Crazy, a film that was a very loose adaptation of the film noir Gun Crazy from the 50s. This film is Drew Barrymore and James LaGrosse, and I was curious about it to kind of check it out. It actually has some good things going for it. It's not a great film, but Drew Barrymore is great in it as this young teen who is just living, poor and ends up connecting with a guy in prison, and they go gun crazy. It's in the title. It doesn't completely work, but there are interesting elements within it, and I think Tamra Davis. It's interesting to me that she ended up directing Billy Madison, because it seems so anti-woman. To a certain extent, where Gun Crazy felt like she felt it was more important to give the female character a stronger persona. And I know she had a lot of fun making this movie. I know she really connected with Adam Sandler, and they had a great bond as far as like what they were looking for in the comedy. But I still find for a woman director Part of it is just frustrating to me that the females in this film just are given so little to work with and are treated the way they are. And I do like Tamra Davis. I think that she's directed a lot of interesting things. I don't know. I guess that's one of the things with this film that I wish was a little stronger.
Have you watched any of the other like dumb comedies that she's done, like Half Baked, and I guess what else she did? Method and Red, and
she did CB4, which got I remember that one getting a lot of good buzz. I haven't seen it.
Chris Rock.
It's something that is certainly on my list of things to check out because I do think that she could do that one. I think she could do something interesting with that one. But otherwise, I haven't seen, I don't think really anything else of hers.
And she's done so much TV.
Yeah,
1 episode, 2
TV.
episode, 3 episodes. She's done a lot of TV since.
The last movie she did was the Britney Spears movie Crossroads in 2002.
She does have coming up an adaptation of 13.
Yeah, that's the musical. It's all. I don't know how they're going to do it as a movie because the musical's all teenagers playing all the roles, and it makes me wonder if the film they're going to do that still, or if that's going to come across weird and they're actually going to cast adults too. Well, they are. Deborah Messing, Rhea Perlman. So obviously they're giving up on the entire conceit of the Broadway play. Yeah.
Interesting. Anyway, I'm not much of an aficionado of Tamra Davis. This movie doesn't help. I'd like to see Gun Crazy. I haven't seen that one. And so this isn't a great entree into the Tamra Davis collection, but I have seen a bunch of the TV that she's done, just accidentally. And I don't remember wanting to light the TV on fire for many of them. And again, it's a capable film. Like, it's a competent film, as Steve says. Like, it's a competent film. It definitely appeals to some. And I recognize that largely what I don't like is the character and the way the character strings together sketches in this movie. And that's a taste thing. Movies are hard.
Movies are hard, indeed. Yeah, I feel like. In context of what we're getting here, it's fine. And if you're into the humor, you're going to enjoy this. If you struggle with Adam Sandler and his humor, you're probably not going to be as big a fan of this particular film.
Mm-hmm.
So, we've had in our Discord live stream, a few people have brought up the character.
Oh, the wrestler.
Josh Mustel, the principal Max Anderson. We first meet him when he's substituting for Miss Vaughn when she's out sick, and apparently he sends Billy a Valentine's card talking about how much he wants him and how horny he is. And then of course we get he's the blackmail. Like, the whole conceit of the character is Eric blackmails him because he finds that he had been a masked wrestler in his past and had sat on somebody in a bit and killed the person. I don't know. It's a weird. The whole thing is strange. I like Josh Mustel quite a bit. He was, Tom Hanks's lawyer in The Money Pit. He was one of my favorite characters in City Slickers. He and his brother are the ice cream guys, and that whole bit, it just cracks me up with the, scoop of chocolate, scoop of vanilla. Don't waste my time. Like, I can watch that scene in City Slickers, all day long. Here, I really struggle with what they're doing with this character and what they're saying, and really like what it ends up saying now as you look at it and how they're treating this particular character. What are your thoughts?
He's 75 right now. I think he was looking particularly young in the 90s. I guess he was, he was born in 46. So
yeah.
Anyway, I hated it. I hated what he added. This whole character is a hat on a hat for me. I didn't need it. I didn't need the P.S. I'm horny bits. I just thought it was. I just didn't think it was funny. I didn't laugh at it at all. I didn't need the wrestling angle. I didn't need any of it. It just was like too much. It's just another layer on something that as a result of it being there took away from something else. Like there was already maybe a movie here that could have had a little bit of heart buried somewhere in the comedy. I didn't care for it.
There's no heart. He's played as a gay joke. He's played as a kind of fat shaming. Like, just all of it just seems very strange. And like, he's not even given at the end, you know, it turns into another opportunity to just make fun of the fact that he just is like, I'm still horny and all this stuff. It's just, it just played so frustrating and pretty lame. Can I ask you another question about a weird setup and payoff that I was like,
Sure.
Who is this for? The bus is driving. Chris Farley eats a banana and throws a banana peel out the window. We see that banana peel. We cut back to the banana peel rotting in the road over and over throughout the film. And then finally, it gets a payoff late in the film. It's this high school bully, O'Doyle.
O'Doyle rules.
O'Doyle rules.
Lots of O'Doyles.
This high school bully, and he's bullying Billy. And then finally, we get the payoff, and it's the O'Doyle family apparently driving, and they're all like, O'Doyle rules. It hits a banana peel, and the car goes off the road.
Yeah. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. It was like, what? It was ridiculous. Like, I feel like it was just to show high school karma. And there's the other angle of high school karma is, the sniper when he calls, what's his name?
Steve Buscemi.
Steve Buscemi, who I love Steve Buscemi. And what a fun cameo for him where Billy calls him and says, hey, I treated you really badly. And I just want you to know I've learned a lesson and I'm sorry. That was wrong of me. He's like, hey, no problem. It's okay. And he hangs up and he turns around and there's a list of 10 people that he wants to kill. And he crosses Billy Madison's name off that list. Okay. That was already funny enough, right? I didn't actually need any more of that payoff, but I didn't mind that he shows up. I guess I did mind, aged poorly, but a sniper shows up with a gun in a school and shoots somebody in the butt. So if you take it in the context of the 90s and that this was a payoff to an earlier joke, that's one thing. I didn't necessarily care for it in the context because it gives the ickies. It is an inappropriate thing in our lives right now, and I struggle with that kind of humor writ large. But Buscemi itself, I get the joke, and I didn't find it a terrible joke. I thought it was funny. I did not care for the same thing. I just didn't understand the karma banana peel Thelma and Louising off the cliffside. I didn't. It didn't have any weight. There were no laughs.
It was weird. Apparently, it is this is a movie that has generated a lot of memes, and I just wonder if again, it appeals to you if you're the right audience and you saw it at the right time and it clicks. But O'Doyle rules is a meme I've seen. Any other memes that were there some funny lines in here that stood out as something like that's memeable? Like, there were things I enjoyed, like with the principal toward the end.
Yeah, what you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have never heard. That whole monologue is amazing. Yeah.
That was basically my review for this. I also liked it when he said, I have neither the time nor the crayons to explain this to you.
Yes.
He had some funny lines.
Farley taking off is because part of the gag during his academic decathlon, preparation is that he has Veronica taking off an item of clothing every time he gets an answer right. And it comes back around and pays off with Chris Farley doing the same thing. And he says, that is correct. And takes his shirt off. And I find that funny.
Yeah. But that's Farley. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's Farley.
Exactly. There are lines in here that are funny. Like, I don't know. I of course I can't think of it. Most of them I don't attribute to Sandler. It is some of those other bits, and so. Mm-hmm. But again, I think it just appeals to people who really click with the comedy for this. So
everyone my age pees their pants. It's the coolest. Okay, that was good. Did the penguin play for you? Just my last thing.
That was just one of those things that I'm just like, they're just being random. Like, they're coming up with something kooky and random, and I'm not really sure what it's doing for me at all. It, just is meant to be a guy who's just drunk and seeing penguins. It didn't do a whole lot for me. If I'm gonna be looking for great uses of penguins in film, I'm probably gonna go to like Fight Club.
Yeah, okay. I agree with that. I think part of the reason I don't think it played is because I don't think Sandler at this point had the chops to pull it off. I didn't buy his drunk. Not once did I buy Sandler drunk.
No, because there is no difference, and that's the struggle. It's like he always was acting this way. Where was that line that was crossed? Like, why is he not seeing a penguin all the time? Because he acts the same through the whole film.
Right.
All right. Well, clearly not a film for us. But it's. I'm glad it has its fans. Adam Sandler certainly has been able to create a career for him and all of his buddies to kind of keep cranking the same sort of stuff out, and good for them. It's just nothing that I'm excited about.
Yep. Agreed.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. We'll be right back. But first, our credits.
The next reel is a production of True Story FM, engineering by handsome Andy Nelson, music by Francesco D'Andrea, Oriel Novella, and Eli Catlin. Andy usually finds the stats for the awards and numbers at v-numbers.com, boxofficemojo.com, imdb.com, and wikipedia.org. Find the show at truestory.fm, and if your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, please consider doing that for our show. All right, how to do the award season?
Not very well. It had one nomination at the MTV Movie and TV Awards. That's going to be the place for something like this. Best Comedic Performance by Adam Sandler. That screams strange to me, but it is what it is. He lost to Jim Carrey for Dumb and Dumber. Interesting, because they came out a year apart. I'm not sure where their line is as far as when the cutoff for a season is. The other nominations, Jim Carrey also for The Mask, Tim Allen for The Santa Claus, and Tom Arnold for True Lies. And I certainly would, if anything, I would add Jeff Daniels in here from Dumb and Dumber and just drop Adam Sandler entirely. Then I think you have a lineup I'm happier with.
Yep, absolutely. And how about at the box office?
Something else we didn't talk about with Tamra Davis is she was a replacement on this film. She came in 4 days before they had to start shooting, because the previous director, all she was told was that the previous director, who was a friend of Sandler's at the time, I guess, wasn't funny enough. And so she came on and ended up working. She was given $10 million to make this movie. That's $16.8 million in today's dollars. The movie opened February 10th, 1995, where it opened in the number 2 slot behind other new release Sam Raimi's The Quick and the Dead, one of my ones I have a great time with. Shallow Grave, the other new film that weekend introducing the world to Danny Boyle, had a limited release, opening in 16th place. Billy Madison did well for itself, earning $25.6 million domestically and $900,000 internationally, for a total gross of $44.5 million in today's dollars. That lands the film with an adjusted profit per finished minute of $311,000 and set Sandler on his way to become all that he is.
Oh, Andy, I see you left a sort of a dangling thought picture there, a dangling experiment for my brain.
When you say, what has he become, that's different for everyone, Pete.
All
it's
that he is.
For everyone.
He's become all of that. Did you have any thoughts on the musical interlude?
I enjoy when a comedy randomly throws like a little musical bit at you. I think it's kind of a fun thing to just kind of acknowledge that this is a movie, we're not in reality. Genuinely, I think those are fun. Adam Sandler's voice when he's singing has never been one of my favorites, although I do think the Thanksgiving song is kind of funny. I don't, it was okay. I don't think it really went as big as it could have. It just kind of, it ended up feeling like it's kind of funny, but it just was there.
I, too, thought it was there. I didn't find it all that funny. I just didn't think of more musical interludes that I like better than this. I just didn't find any of the callbacks that funny. So that's fine.
The strangest one for me was the clown, the stilt
Oh, the
clown
hemorrhaging stilt clown. Yeah,
that
right.
everybody thought, like, he gets tripped by a donkey at one of the like first grade graduation party and collapses on the ground, and everybody just laughs and nobody acknowledges like, oh, this person fell down, we should check on him. And apparently he has been there all the time up until we get to that musical bit. It was a strange moment.
Nib-high football rules. That's all I got.
All right, everybody, we'll be right back for our ratings of this film. But first, we're going to play the trailer for the movie that's kicking off our next season at the beginning of August. It is none other than George Lucas's Star Wars.
Somewhere in space, this may all be happening right now. 20th Century Fox and George Lucas, the man who brought you American Graffiti, now bring you an adventure unlike anything on your planet. Star Wars.
Here they come. Coming in too fast.
The story of a boy, a girl, and a universe. It's a big, sprawling space saga of rebellion and romance. It's a spectacle, light years ahead of its time.
I am C-3PO, human cyborg relations, and this is my counterpart, R2-D2.
Hello.
No sauces, no sauces.
It's an epic of heroes.
Good luck.
And villains. And aliens from 1,000 worlds. Star Wars, 1 billion years in the making, and it's coming to your galaxy this summer.
All right, Andy, so now we get to rate it. Let's see if the chat room was right. Where'd you land?
Letterboxd ranking for this. I keep feeling guilty about, like, as I have these conversations about these movies, I keep feeling guilty that I gave The Weight of Water a half star, because I'm like, that was better than this.
Yes.
Like, I just keep landing there. So this film really is just a half-star film. I mean, it has some actual funny moments, genuinely, that made me laugh out loud, usually involving Chris Farley. But largely, just the film itself was just complete misfire for me. And Billy Madison was just the most grating of characters. I just did not care for him at all. And I mean, that's the thing. If you can get into the character, if you can get into it, you're going to like this movie. For me, I just absolutely couldn't. So I just found him I agree with a lot of the critics. Sophomoric and juvenile, not for me. Half star, no like.
Wow. This is, as you can imagine, I wonder if you can imagine my biggest challenge in rating this movie. Can you?
Yes. Your biggest challenge in rating this movie is that you can't do half stars anymore.
Yes, Andy. Yes, you know me that well. I am Pete, no half stars right. I cannot do half stars, and I cannot rate 0 stars because I don't know how that works on the algorithm. Yeah. This is a 1-star, no heart movie. Absolutely, it is bottom of the barrel for me, and I do not care for it. Sorry, Billy. I need to go watch Uncut Gems.
I can't wait to add this one to our flick chart. So for everyone who's not a member, we do our retake episodes after each series. So after this episode drops to members, we will have a retake episode where we actually talk about kind of the 4 90s comedies, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Clueless, The Last Supper, and this. We'll be kind of talking about those 4 films and just kind of 90s comedy in general. And we also add these to our flick chart. And that will be an interesting experiment to see how this one fares when it comes to that. This has been probably one of the roughest of our series, I think, that we've had. We've had some films that were kind of a challenge, so we'll see.
Yeah, we sure have. Wow. All right. Well, 1 star. That's it.
Star.
I got nothing else.
So what did you think about Billy Madison? We would love to have a conversation with you about it. Hop into the Show Talk channel over in our Discord community, where we will be talking this week about the movie.
When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Letterboxd giveth, Andrew.
As Letterboxd always doeth.
I didn't. I went to the top of the barrel, but I don't think I went as high as you did. Did you do a 5-star?
I did.
Wow. Okay. Well, I guess you should go first. Or should I go first? You want me to go first?
You should go first. We should end on a high note.
Okay. Or end on the highest note, because I went on a 4-star from Christy, and I went. We've talked about these points, but I want to offer this as a sort of cinematic olive branch to the movie. That I get that there are things going on that are comedic, and I still didn't like the movie, but I'll note this. Christy says, there is a scene where a car driving the family of Adam Sandler's high school bully skids on a banana peel placed on the road 20 minutes earlier in the film, then careens off the cliff. The presumed death of an entire family is followed by a smash cut to a room full of teachers and school children rapturously applauding. This is just one of the reasons why Billy Madison is one of the best films ever made. That's a funny, context cut. And I want to acknowledge Tamra Davis for making that choice. Thank you, Christy.
Death to the family.
Death to the family. Applause from school children.
All right.
That is all.
That seems very
I'm not
dark.
saying we have to
dark.
celebrate it. We just have to acknowledge that it exists.
It's funny that someone uses that as a reason to give you 4
I know. It's very strange.
4 stars. I have a 5-star by Dimitri Box. Clearly had some fond memories. I liked it when he had trouble writing cursive in elementary school, so he screamed at all the little kids, I hate cursive and I hate all of you. And he then cried and ran out of the classroom. Another father-son bonding movie. I love it.
Would you like to try Buzz? Rurodo? Those are ours. Okay, see, I'm laughing. Yeah. That was a funny bit. I can't believe we didn't talk about the cursive, because the cursive was a funny bit.
Doesn't deserve another 1/2 star, but
no.
That's because the Z is a funny cursive letter.
It's because Z is comedy. Cursive is comedy,
and that's where they succeed on what are those things that we can latch onto in these different grades that is funny. And
that Sandler isn't going to screw up by trying to make comedy out of it. It's already funny.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
The paste bit was funnier when he was eating it, and then they kill it by having the teacher smearing it on her eyes or whatever she's doing.
Right on a
what
hat.
Was that? Yeah.
What was that?
All right.
Yeah. Thanks, Letterboxd. Andy, it's hard to believe we've been having weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
Oh, you're telling me. Producing this show week after week is so much fun, but it does require a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our Originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
The Originals page at thenextreel.com/originals has links to purchase the source material behind our adapted film discussions. Your purchases there help support the show at no extra cost.
For the entirety of season 11, we featured films directed by women.
The only exceptions were some of our member bonus episodes.
We talked about The Lure for our Horror Debuts series, which is a very loose adaptation of The Little Mermaid by Hans Christian Andersen.
Definitely miles from the Disney versions.
For our 10-year anniversary series, we covered We Need to Talk About Kevin, taken from the Lionel Shriver novel.
Man, that was brilliant.
And horrifying.
Yeah. The Journalist series included Merrily We Go to Hell and The Weight of Water, adapted from Anita Shreve's bestseller.
We filled some gaps in previous series with member bonus episodes on adaptations like Malcolm X, Mr. Blandings Builds His Dream House, Cactus Flower, Wild at Heart, Life Force, and the Blues Brothers.
Our John Hurd series looked at a trio of adaptations: Chilly Scenes of Winter from the novel by Ann Beatty, Awakenings based on Oliver Sacks' nonfiction book, and Rambling Rose adapted from the Calder Willingham novel.
2 films in our coming-of-age debut series were adapted from books: The Virgin Suicides from Jeffrey Eugenides, and The Diary of a Teenage Girl, Phoebe Glockner's graphic novel.
We had Queen of Kotway for our sports series based on Tim Crothers' nonfiction book.
And Clueless kicked off our 90s comedy series, loosely adapted from Jane Austen's Emma.
It totally took place in the 90s, though. Find all of these books and more adaptations on our originals page at thenextreel.com/originals.
Start your next read from the movies we've covered. Visit thenextreel.com/originals today.